Welcome back. I have a really special guest for all of you today. It is Ruschele Abbruzzese.
Pretty close enough. Abbruzzese.
I've known her so long that she had a different name when I originally met her, but for some reason I'm unwilling to learn the new name, but I'm going to stop now so we can restart again. All right, welcome back to World's Greatest Agent Interviews. Today I have a very special guest. A lot of our longtime Premier Coaching members certainly know her. She is head coach Ruschele. Ruschele, welcome to today's interview.
Thank you, Tim. Happy to be here.
So what we're going to do, of course, we have a long list of questions, and Ruschele took the time, of course, to answer all the questions. Show them your answers and your questions. Okay. But so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of bounce in and out of those questions because so much is going on right now in the industry as pertains to the commission sharing lawsuits. And Ruschele brings an interesting, Ruschele has been with Julie and I since 1990s. She worked with us originally as a buyer's agent, and then she took over running our buyer's agent staff. And then, she's been with us as a coach, just in whatever, as Julie and I have evolved the industry, Ruschele's been our wingman all the way along. And really a fantastic friend and really a family member at this point. Zoe knows her as Aunt Ruschele. So Ruschele, welcome to today's podcast. And let's jump in and get to the hardest questions first. What do you think?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So first of all, Ruschele, where do you sell real estate? And give them a little bit of background on yourself. I know you're limited by time because you have to be on a coaching call in a half hour, but give them a little bit of background on you.
I am in Columbus, Ohio. Got my license in 1997. I am a mother of one. She's getting ready to head to college, so I'm soon to be an empty nester and not looking forward to that, really.
Well, you can maybe we'll send Zoe up to spend the summer with you. How
Please
about
do.
that? All right. So you are right now you're coaching a lot of obviously our Premier coaching members, and you do the daily semi-private coaching call at least a couple times a week. And there have been a lot of fear, panic, and really, I think, a lot of misplaced emotions around the commission sharing lawsuits. Julie and I have, been pounding out all the podcasts and all, kinds of research and such been done on all that. How are you coaching your clients to emotionally move past the fear of essentially these changes that are going to be taking place mid-year?
Well, what's funny about this even happening is from the time that I was your buyer's agent and you forced me to use the buyer's agency agreement. And because you did that for me, it's been part of my life for ever since I got my license. So when I'm coaching my students, one of the first things I do you use a buyer agency? Do you use a presentation? Do you use a pre-listing packet? So when they say they don't use a buyer agency agreement, that's one of the first things that I start working on them with. So it's not new to me. It's new to the people that are afraid to use it. So trying to get them to understand that it's more protection for both sides and that it is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you look at it negatively and you're worried about how you're going to present it. You have to show value.
Well, so thank you for saying that. Even though it was a backhanded compliment, I'll take it. But you did describe it correctly. When we had a big buyer's agent staff, every single buyer they would have to meet in the office. It doesn't have to be an office, obviously, nowadays. But there was a presentation that the buyer's agents had to present to the buyer before they were supposed to even show the buyer a single house. And the output or the result of the buyer agent presentation was going to be an exclusive buyer agency contract, which is now mandated, a state agency form, and a buyer net sheet. I think those are the three forms, weren't they? We weren't asking for anything else.
Have it. Our
There
very
you go.
first one.
So that's what we created back in the 90s. So when we say that we were prepared for this change, trust me when I tell you we were prepared for this change. But it is fascinating too, Ruschele. You said like a lot of agents, it's totally familiar or unfamiliar with them, and it makes them feel a lot of times agents are working with their centers of influence and past clients, and to ask that person to obligate themselves to I'm gonna make this into a question, so be ready. To ask that person to obligate themselves to sign something that's going to make it so that the agent's going to be guaranteed a commission, and if the seller's not paying it, the buyer has to pay for it. How do you move them past that fear? What's your strategy?
First of all, making sure they know how to show value and how they know how to present that exact document. If they present it like it's a snake getting ready to bite somebody, nobody's going to want to sign it. So understanding the form from beginning to end what every single area means, and being able to then relay that to your buyer is going to make it a smooth transition. It's how you present it. If you present it correctly, there's nothing to fear.
Yeah, you were in the business with, when Julie and I and you, we were basically same year when the buyer agency even got formed. It used to just be sub agency, and the ABR and all this great stuff came around. Back then it was totally and completely new. What do you mean the buyer agent's going to have an entitlement to half the listing agent's commission, and all the rest of it? So back before there were buyer agents, buyers had a real rough time, and it was essentially a deviation of a dual agency on most transactions. Buyers agents have an enormous need in the marketplace, and fortunately for all agents, for the last 30 years basically, most buyers and sellers have only known to buy real estate using a buyer's agent, and so they've conditioned themselves to want to use a buyer's agent, and that's not going to change. What will change, but I don't really think it's going to be that radical of a change, what will change is going to be how the commission is paid. So the only real discernible difference, and we got this from the CEO of NAR, is that in the MLS, it can't say what the commission is going to be. There can be no mention of the buyer agent commission, but that's not to say there's not going to be buyer agent commissions, because buyers agents are still going to be working with buyers, and buyers agents still need to be paid. So we think, and it makes sense, that there's going to be obviously the traditional way of going about it. The seller's going to pay the buyer agent commission, but also there's going to be financing. You're going to see banks are going to start competing. Because think of it this way. So you're working with a VA buyer, and that VA buyer has barely enough for a down payment, and they want to obviously work with the buyer's agent. They sign an exclusive contract because they have to now to work with the buyer's agent. So the exclusive contract makes it so the buyer's obligated to pay that buyer a 3% commission, or whatever it is, whatever the agreement says. So that buyer agent who barely had their down payment now has to come up with some more money to cover their representation, which I think makes sense. Now, where does that create problems? If you're the whole thing, this whole change was made because they were worried that agents were steering their buyers to the co-ops that paid the most money. But now what's going to happen is the buyers who are now contractually obligated to pay the buyer agent commission are going to want to have the buyer agent commission paid for by the seller. And they're the ones that are going to be telling the buyers only show houses where the buyer agent commission is getting covered. I mean, only show houses, in my VA example, where the seller is willing to take a FHA VA type contract. I mean, that's how this is all going to change. So, at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of education. A lot of agents are going to have to learn how to present it. But I mean, the fear is what really is overwhelming in the marketplace right now. So, Ruschele, with agents that have mindset issues around fear, how are you helping them through that?
Well, it's funny you even brought that up, because today my Facebook Live call is all about the same thing we're talking about now. So I think the hardest thing for an agent in our market right now is being able to show what value they bring to the table. If they're not using a pre-listing packet or a buyer presentation or a seller presentation, and they're just winging it, they're not showing their value. So if they're not showing their value and why they should be hired, no one's going to want to sign with them. And if they don't show their value prior to meeting that client, nobody's going to feel comfortable signing it either. So the day of the Pop-Tart realtor popping up, I'll be there in 5 minutes to show a house to somebody I've never met at a house I've never been, that's gone. Thank God.
How does this give an agent, like you did say it correctly. I mean, back when we had our real estate team, and you obviously help us run it, the agents that we hired, I remember most of them, they were all cranky about having to have buyer agency contracts signed, because the buyers weren't being required to sign exclusive contracts with the other agents. And so we would require it. So, and obviously the benefit to the agent was that they knew they're working with a real buyer, right? And the buyer's agent had to prove their value. But in a marketplace now where, how does being more professional and taking a more, essentially taking the same approach that listing agents have always had to do with winning listings, how does that make an agent actually more competitive, not less competitive? How back in the 90s, when we were requiring that you follow this procedure and you have the exclusive sign, how did that actually give you an advantage in the marketplace, not a disadvantage?
Well, it's between, do you want to take a buyer out and use your gas for a maybe someday, hopefully if I decide to, I might buy a house from you, or you want it to be signed and know that they absolutely are going to buy a house from you. So you're either taking a chance or you're making it concrete. Which one is going to bring you the commission?
How's it an advantage to the buyer to want to work with an agent that's more professional?
Well, if you're a buyer and one of these questions is funny because you said what made me want to become a realtor, and one of the reasons why is because I met a real estate agent and I hated the way that she operated. I couldn't believe that she was making the money she was making with her being so unprofessional. So that made me actually want to get my license. And then when I meet with people and they say, oh, the other agent didn't do that, or the other agent never mentioned, dual agency, I know that I bring value because I don't forget anything when I'm going through the presentations with them.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And the reason that we did it back then is because what it did is it differentiated you as a buyer's agent in the eyes of the buyer, especially if that buyer happened to have a house to sell. So if you think about it, you said pop-tart agent, that's from our dearly departed friend, Howard Brinton. And yeah, I mean, if you are a pop-tart agent and you're just essentially, you don't put any value on your time or, really aren't taking a professional approach to getting that buyer to commit to you, they're not going to respect you. And if you come up, I remember there were, I don't even know how many examples where we would have buyers that weren't under exclusive agreements with their buyer's agents, who they didn't have much respect for, who would choose to work with us just because we took a more formalized approach, explaining to them the whole process through the buyer agent presentation. And the ones that really surprised me that acted like that were the ones that you would have thought would be more sophisticated buyers, the ones that have bought and sold numerous times. They're the ones that appreciated the fact that we were taking a more formal approach more than, say, even a first-time buyer. It's kind of fascinating. First-time buyers weren't really that picky. The move-up buyers are the ones that were really picky who they were going to work with. But yeah, so now the whole industry is going to be forced to use exclusive buyer agency contracts. And it's going to come down to how efficient you are at presenting your USPs, your unique selling propositions. If you don't have any, well, and you're competing against Ruschele, who has a whole bunch, you're at a disadvantage. So if you're a brokerage or you're an independent agent or a team, and you haven't really drilled down on what your value is to the marketplace as a buyer's agent, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. And furthermore, you don't have a choice if this, guideline law goes into effect, as we believe it will. You don't have a choice but to have that buyer sign an exclusive buyer agency contract with you. Right. So, better get your act together. So that's the reason we're having so many people, hundreds of agents every month joining Premier Coaching now, because a lot of them know that they need to get their skills on. And, this is going to make a whole new generation of agents are going to become the leaders in their marketplaces because of this. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And I think the weak will go away. I think the stronger agents that know their value will be the ones that will outlast any market change. If you go with the flow of the market, you're going to be able to last longer than the people that don't.
So let's talk about, for example, if you have we're gonna pivot slightly. When you are working with an agent who's a new, I'll run this question 3 different ways. But if you're working with an agent who's a new agent and they're wanting to know what to do to make money now, because very rarely does an agent come to the industry with a pot full of gold, right?
Right.
So what advice do you give them? It's your first opportunity to coach this agent. They're a new Premier Coaching member. What are you telling them to do to get into action now so that they can, not be one of the real estate roadkills that only last 24 months in business?
Preparing for everything that you're going to end up encountering in real estate, preparing your pre-listing packet, knowing how to present it, getting your presentations, knowing how to present them. And of course, if they're wanting to make money, BPOs will always be the first thing that I recommend. You can make great money doing BPOs. Great bunch of new products have just come out. Lots of new BPO companies. The prices have went up, and you learn the market better than anybody. You know how to adjust. You know how to price. You know the difference in comps. Just makes you an all-around better agent, and you're making money while you're doing it.
That's actually something I wasn't going to talk about, but that's a really great point. So broker price opinions are BPOs, and it's essentially an elaborate CMA. You said the prices have gone up. What are they paying now for like a normal BPO?
There's some really good companies right now paying between 75 and 150. And they used to pay, some of them used to be 25, 35, 45, but they have gone up now because they need agents to do the BPOs. And a lot of agents stopped doing them because they didn't pay enough. So they've raised their prices.
And BPOs are ordered not just because it's a distressed property. They can be ordered for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Dropping
Insurance.
MI, yes.
Exactly. Uh,
Refinancing, all of that.
right. I mean, all kinds of different reasons. Yeah. So BPOs are something that are a part and parcel of obviously the real estate industry, and they have forever. So that's a really good point. So BPOs, if you are getting paid $100 per BPO, and you want to make money now, obviously that's going to be something that would be a great way for you to earn money now while, essentially being forced to know the industry, because you're going to be the world's best,
Absolutely.
essentially, you're going to be able to do the best CMA ever. I mean, after having done a bunch of BPOs, I think that's a really great point. Yeah, that's very practical. I appreciate that. So there's also the 90-day massive action plan too, right? Getting them into action, telling
Oh,
them what,
absolutely.
right? Tell the listeners a little bit, or the viewers a little bit about that.
The 90-day massive action plan.
Yeah.
So it's a plan that agents can follow for 90 days. It has a sample schedule, things that they can be doing to make money, taking an appointment, doing an open house, doing a BPO. All of that adds in. And the goal is in that 90 days, by the end of that 90 days, they should be having enough money stream coming in that now they don't have to, freak out and strictly focus on BPOs, but now their streams of income are starting to develop based on everything we're telling them to do in the 90-day massive action plan.
Right. And the 90-day massive action plan, like Ruschele just said, tells you exactly what you should be doing for the first 90 days, every single day.
Every
So
single day.
you're not waking up in the morning thinking you're supposed to, flutter away your time on Facebook and, making TikTok videos. We're going to put you, the 90-day massive action plan gives you the skills and exact plan and schedule to make money. Because again, we realize that, everyone coming to the industry, very rarely do they come with a big pot of gold. They don't realize that it's 100% commission.
Right.
Ruschele, when you hear other brokers and people say, well, you got to be prepared to not make money for 6 months or 12 months when you're a new real estate agent, what do you think about that? It's a bunch of hooey.
I laugh because I remember when you hired me and you're like, how much money do you want to make? And I lowballed it and I said 50,000 a year. And this was 30 years ago, almost 30. But it's funny because if you have mentors, if you have a coach, if you have somebody giving you direction, there's no reason why you shouldn't start making money right away, whether it's BPOs or going after expireds or pre foreclosures or whatever spoke that you choose. As long as you have direction, somebody helping you get there, absolutely you're going to make money right away. It's not going to take 6 months.
It's so funny when that advice is given and we hear that all the flipping time. Oh, here's the other one I love to hate is the one where they say, well, when you start out, you have to work with buyers. You cannot be working with,
Right.
no one's going to want to list with you. You want to address that one?
Well, and I hear that all the time too from coaching students because they're like, well, nobody knows me. Nobody, how I just got my license a week ago. And I remember you used to tell me, act like you have $1 million in your pocket. You don't act like you're broke. You don't act like you don't know what you're doing. You learn what to do and you do it. And if you do that, you're going to make money. And I think a lot of people freak out about that.
It's energy enthusiasm. But the nice thing is when you plug into our coaching system, essentially our coaching system tells you exactly what you should be doing. You don't have to worry about what to say and when to say it, what your presentations look like. It's already done for you. By the way, premiercoaching.com, or you can click the link below today's show description and you can join for 30 days for free. All right, Ruschele, let's pivot. Is there anything, like I have a billion different questions, but I know you're pressed for time. Is there anything that you would like to talk about that you think that you would feel a little bit disappointed that we didn't cover today, or I can go back to my questions. It's up to you.
Not really. I mean, touching on new real estate agents or agents that don't have direction or agents that get into the business and they are just at a standstill. Sure.
Let's go back to that because
Okay.
that loops two things in. All right. So if you're a midline agent, you've been in the business for a while, that's where we get a lot of coaching clients, actually. The agents that have been in the business for a while, they're struggling now. The things that they've been doing in the past aren't working anymore. Maybe they're at a brokerage that's not really working anymore. They want to continue to be successful, but they don't know how. Let's say maybe they're buying their buyer leads before, just those types of things. So again, they've had some level of success. They want to go to the next level. What would your first thing, let's say an agent that's earning 200,000 and they want to go to 300,000. And let's say their average sale price is, enough that they only have to sell, say, 15 houses a year. Well, how would you go about helping an agent like that go to the next level?
I would see what their spokes are, where their business is coming from. And if they don't have enough spokes, they need to add spokes. So, like you say, the spoke is a wheel. The more spokes you have, the more the wheel turns. So I would suggest different things that maybe they're not doing. Maybe their social media is bad. Maybe they don't network. Maybe they don't go after their center of influence or past clients. I would get down to where their money is coming from, where those leads come from, and then add different spokes to what they're already doing.
So listen to what she just said. The first thing that she said it 3 different ways. So hopefully everyone was listening. Is if you are like, we would go in and find out where your business came from for the last probably 2 years. We'd want you to source all those sources of business. Unfortunately, a lot of agents don't keep very good track where their leads actually come from. But anyway, we'd find out what was working. What was working, we're going to pour the fuel on that fire big time. So if you're getting a bunch of leads from social media, let's say, for example, and they're actually transacting, then we're going to do more of that. We're going to help you do what matters, what you're actually really good at first. If you're great at prospecting and doing proactive lead generation, you're calling expireds, we're going to do more of that. What way you help a coaching client move forward the fastest, especially one that's already in production, is you find what they're willing to do that is actually something that's been, lucrative for them in the past, and you make them better at it. It takes too much time and too much effort sometimes on the agent's part to try to get them to be good at something that they just are abhorrent about doing. I've had many, many agents, I know you have too, Rochelle, that have come to you and they said, I will never fill in the blank.
I will never door knock.
Well, exactly. I'll never do this. I'll never. And you know what the answer is? The correct answer, if you're an experienced coach, the answer is, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you willing to do? Well, I have a really great center of influence past client. Well, I'm really great. I have a great relationship with just whatever. Okay. How can we make more of that? That's what we're going to do first. And oftentimes, and she said this right, is you will find all kinds of missed opportunity within the things that you're already doing. You're just not doing it really at the highest level. And I'll tell you the first one that comes to my mind, Rochelle, and this is chronic in the industry, is horrible lead follow-up. That's
Absolutely.
There's so much money that's being not made because the agents aren't willing to call their leads back. That's extraordinary. So yeah, that's amazing. Rochelle, if someone was a buyer's agent and they wanted to become a listing agent, they wanted to stop, toiling away their nights and their weekends, they wanted to start primarily becoming a listing agent, what suggestions, what 2 or 3 things, what directional things would you give them to do right away?
Right away is definitely a listing presentation and a pre-listing packet, without a doubt, so that you can show your value and you know how to get in front of sellers. Next thing, pick a farm and go crazy on that farm, door knock that farm, door hanger that farm, and get out there and start trying to get listings. But a lot of my business tends to come from me being out and not being afraid to say I'm an agent. No matter where I am, I will always say, oh, do you need to buy a house? Do you need to sell a house? Doesn't matter where I am. I'm not afraid to do that. Just like saying, do you want to make an offer? Do you want to buy it? Do you want to buy it? Getting used to that makes you say it all the time. And then people get used to you saying it as well.
I remember when you learned that originally, it was from a Howard Brinton buyer agent thing.
Sure was.
And you came back and your sales went through the roof. I do remember that. But it is kind of funny though. Conversations, that's really what it comes down to. How often are you willing to put yourself in a position to have a conversation with the decision-making adult about buying or selling real estate? And if you think about the people that are most likely to least likely willing to do business with you, look for the ones that already have their hands in the air and say, yes, I want to transact. And those are going to be your expired listings. Those are going to be your FSBO listings. Those are going to be the people that are, all kinds of different sources of business.
Divorce, baby,
exactly.
Marriages, all of that.
We're in our cabin. I'm still getting used to all the little noises when the wind blows. It's very weird. Yes. And all those different sources. How about new construction, and talk to the new construction rep, your best friend's one. And what is she doing with the buyers that come in that have homes to sell? She's referring those to an agent, right? You guys getting this?
Yes.
So the more conversations you have directly with a human about buyers selling real estate, the more money you're going to make. And what agents have been taught to do, certainly over the last 15 years, is to spend too much time behind the keyboard trying to make too much creative content, hoping and praying the creative content is going to get people to want to call you. And the challenge is that everyone's doing the same thing, because that requires less skill. But what it really requires, because some skill is required, but it really requires is, I shouldn't say requires, what you're really trying to avoid is rejection. So the rejection thing, Ruschele, because if you really cut through all of it, hearing the word no and feeling like you're being rejected is the thing that prevents many agents from ever becoming successful. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Right. And that's if you really cut through all of it, if you ask somebody what they do for lead generation, which is another coach question. So what are your, top 3 sources of leads? If you hear someone say they buy their leads, they just get all of them from centers of influence and past clients, or they do some other passive thing, that tells you that's someone that is super afraid of asking a question that might result in some perception of conflict. In other words, hearing the word no. And then that's probably all of you listening and watching right now. And what Ruschele, what she just told you, and hopefully you guys are allowing this to work into your brains, is that fear of rejection is going to keep you broke. It's going to keep you from becoming essentially the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner. So Ruschele, someone's afraid of rejection. How are you going to move them past that?
I always tell them, like, even with door knocking, when they're afraid to door knock, I say things, just little ways of telling them. So if you and I went for a walk and I said, I'll pay you 20 grand to go up and talk to that person at that door for 30 seconds, would you do it? They're like, well, yeah. Well, what's the difference? It's the exact same thing. Going up and door knocking, they're not going to kill you. They may shut the door on your face. It's okay. Go on to the next. But you have to overcome that fear, or you'll never do the things that are going to make you money.
We did one of these interviews with Dwayne Richens, who's part of our EXP group. He's in Utah, and all he did, he sold hundreds of homes, was just door knock. That's all he did, just door knock, cold doors. So it's worth mentioning, as far as the probability of finding a ready to go seller from door knocking is a lot lower than if you're, for example, contacting expired listings. Hopefully everyone can see the obvious reason why. You're door knocking in a neighborhood. Those are just homeowners that aren't even thinking about selling. 1 out of 20 maybe might be thinking about it. Whereas if you're actually calling expireds or for sale by owners. So the folks that we've in the industry, in our coaching business, that have always made the most money consistently are always the ones that are proactively generators. They're picking up the phone every single day. Or in real life, they're having conversations at the gym, when they're out walking their dog. Like Ruschele, she understated her willingness to have conversations with anyone at any time. It's her superpower. It always has been, ever since I've known her. And anytime, any situation, she's going to go up and be able to have a spirited conversation that leads to a real estate conversation. Ruschele, is it hard to teach people to do that?
Yes. It is. I mean, it's some people are afraid of public speaking, some people aren't. So, I mean, you have to get over it. But I door knock expireds. I don't call them. I door knock them.
So what's the difference? What's the advantage of door knocking expired versus calling them?
If I go and door knock 5 expireds on a Saturday, I'm more than likely going to have 5 conversations. If I sit on the phone for 30 or 40 minutes to an hour and call, I might have 1 or 2 conversations. But it's if I'm out in front of them, I know I can sell myself in front of them. I brought my services to them to explain what I have to offer. So
I'm being sensitive to the clock. Don't worry, I'm watching.
okay.
But also, when you're door knocking, it's harder for people to close it to, they, first of all, caller ID isn't saying unknown caller.
Right.
But everyone has this ability. Ruschele's very intuitive. You guys can feel that about her. But everyone's got some level of intuitive power. And so you can read the person that you're talking to, and they can read you. And chances are you're going to click with them a lot faster. And also, it's fascinating, what she said is a really great point, is that when you're door knocking expireds, and let's just say everyone else has been calling them, or, highly ineffective mailing them something, she's going to have the advantage. She's going to be the only one that went to the door. She's going to be the only one that's there right now to help them list the house.
They say that too. You're the first person that actually stopped by.
But that's the thing. That's the beauty about real estate. It's very infrequent that someone's actually, I mean, Julie and I sold over 100 homes our first year in the business. Nobody pre-qualified. We looked like we were 12 years old. Okay. No one stopped. Well, I'm not going to do business with them. They clearly haven't been in the business for very long. They did business with us because we took an organized approach and had energy and enthusiasm. But isn't that really, do you think we should, what are you thinking when I say that?
I agree. You guys looked young as can be, but you didn't act young as can be. You acted like the professional real estate people that you were. So it made
Even
people
though,
want to work
yeah,
with you.
even though we look like we're in sixth grade. But the point is, right? Yeah. The point is that everyone, no matter what your age is, no matter what your education level is, you can muster energy and enthusiasm. And Rochelle says something really important. If you have a organized approach to your real estate career, which you get from Premier Coaching, you're going to have you're going to be more confident when you're approaching any kind of opportunity. Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. So Rochelle, out of respect for your hard stop, you are associated with Julie and I, EXP Realty. You're part of our EXP Realty community. And there's hundreds of agents that are joining with us every single month. Between 100 and 200 agents are joining with our EXP Realty group. And you're one of our favorite and most effective sponsors, because when someone chooses you as a sponsor, they get you as their sponsor, which is obviously something pretty special. So if someone wants to contact you, I actually know your phone number, I have memorized. If someone wants to contact Rochelle for anything really, but especially about joining EXP Realty, look, she's saying if I'm going to get it right. Contact Rochelle at 614-496-6723. 614, it's been the same phone number for 30 years. You think I
It
had that
has.
one? Yeah. I still can't say your new last name, but I'm not going to even try.
Abbruzzese.
There you go. 614-49, now I forgot it.
496-6723.
I was just testing to see if you remembered it. So if you guys are ready to join EXP Realty and you're looking for a sponsor that will be incredibly proactive in your success, you would definitely want to look into Rochelle. And she's, just a great friend, really a member of our family, which is really, that happens after 30 years of knowing someone fairly intensely during the good times, the bad times, mostly good times, fortunately. And, if you were looking for an EXP Realty sponsor, all of you are looking to upgrade your real estate overall experience, please consider Premier Coaching. The link to join is in today's show description, or just go to premiercoaching.com. And all of you should be taking a hard look at EXP Realty. And I can't think of anybody else, that's going to be as overall as concerned and focused on your success at EXP Realty than Rochelle. So please do give her a call, 614-496-6723. 614-496-6723. Call or text, inundate her with phone calls.
Please do.
All
Love
right,
to have you.
anything else you'd like to say to these guys before we hit end?
Don't go blindly into the new market. Don't be scared. Don't be blind. Don't be stupid. Take it and become the professional that you are and own it. Don't
And
be
be quick. Don't procrastinate. Be
right.
fast. Beat your competition, because that is what other agents are, to the adaptation of these new rules. Don't worry about it. Don't be overly analyzing or thinking about it. Remember, you are in the greatest industry. What will be the greatest time, because there's so much change. The change is going to create opportunities for new agents to become the leaders in their marketplaces. Just like EXP Realty, the numbers came out today. They're the largest brokerage by transaction volume. EXP Realty only started in 2008. You can have a similar success story in your own market with selling real estate, because the other agents are so stuck in the mud about trying to keep things the way they were. The things that were are no longer. So adapt and adapt quickly. And remember, again, you are in the greatest industry in planet Earth. You are smart enough to get a real estate license, and now be smart enough to take the next natural step. Please consider Premier Coaching and joining us at EXP Realty. Rochelle, we love you. Have a fantastic day and good luck on your coaching calls.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great day.